Yep, changed my shirt there. Alright, so we're on to the second screencast, and this one is about, or is entitled, What is Money? Now, as frightening as this may be, if you really think about what money is, you'll realize that it's basically just a delusion. I often think about this as I'm staring at the ceiling at night. Take out a dollar bill and stare at it, and think about whether the day after the apocalypse you're going to find any value to that little piece of paper. I mean, the day after the apocalypse happens, I'm going to be worrying about which kid I'm going to be sending as tribute from my district in order to please the capital. I'm going to be thinking about water and electricity. I'm not going to be thinking about little pieces of paper. So money is really an illusion. It's valuable because we think it's valuable and we think other people are going to think it's valuable. And if you look historically, money is really anything that people accept for goods and services, and that's going to be our definition of money. Anything that's generally accepted as a medium of exchange for goods and services. And historically, all sorts of things have been used as money. Beads, cows, find yourself in prison and you might find yourself sold for a few packs of cigarettes, which are used as money in prison. Yeah, that's disturbing. Um, so money is what really money does, which is buy goods and services, and anything that does that, we're going to call money. Now, in order to be effective as money, it's got to have a few characteristics. It's useful if money is portable. A dollar bill is more portable than a cow. If it's uniform, so each dollar bill is the same, cows aren't all the same. If it's acceptable, if people take it, not many people taking cows these days in America. If it's stable, if it's familiar, and importantly, if it's divisible. You can divide a dollar up because we have coins. You could also divide a cow up, but it gets rather bloody. Now there are three generally accepted functions of money, and this is kind of important for the AP exam because it always shows up. Money does three separate things. First, it's a medium of exchange, which means you can use it to buy goods and services. If you bring $10 into a movie theater and use that $10 to buy a ticket, you're using money as a medium of exchange. Secondly, it's a unit of account. It tells you what things are worth or what value things have. So when you walk into a store and you look at price tags, you're really using money as a unit of account, a way to measure the value of things. And then third, it's a store of value. You can take a $10 bill and put it in your pocket and kind of save the purchasing power that you have for the future, maybe for a week or even years. So the three functions of money. Now, one interesting thing about money that we have to think about going forward is that money has more value the sooner you have it. A dollar today is worth more than a dollar that you might get a year from now, because a dollar today you can use for various things over the course of a year. And that has value. There's an opportunity cost for not being able to use money. In this case, it would be the opportunity cost of not having use of that dollar for that entire year. And so to figure out what opportunity cost is, we'll generally use the interest rate, because one thing that you could always do with your money is put it in the bank, open a savings account, and start earning interest. So we might want to think about how much would a dollar today be worth in the future? What is the time value of money? Well, fortunately or unfortunately, there's a formula for this. Future value, what a dollar is going to be worth in the future, is equal to the present value times 1 plus the interest rate to the nth power, n being the number of years your money is going to be tied up. So I'll give you an example, and I'm going to let you work through another example on your own. Let's say you agree to make a loan to a friend of $400 today, and your friend's going to pay you back in 2 years. Let's also say the interest rate that you could earn on your money if you were to put it in the bank as opposed to give it to your friend is 5%. So the question is, how much should your friend pay you back in 2 years to cover your opportunity cost, the lost interest that you're not going to earn because you're giving your friend the money? Well, what we're trying to figure out is the future value of that $400. So using the formula, future value is equal to the present value, $400, times 1 plus the interest rate, which is 0.05, to the second power. If you do the math, that's $441. In other words, in 2 years, your friend is going to have to pay you $441 in order to make you equally as well off as if you had just taken that money and put it in the bank. $400 today is $441 in 2 years. Here's a problem you can work on, and pause the video if you want to see if you can figure it out. Your grandfather agrees to give you $1,000 in 3 years. Alternatively, he tells you he'll give you the money today, which you can put in a savings account and earn 2% interest. Question: how much would he have to give you today to make you as well off as if he gave you $1,000 in 3 years? And a little hint here, solving this time for present value, not the future value. You might want to pause the video, see if you can figure it out. Alright, if you did the math right, you'll get $942.32. In other words, if you took $942.32, put it in a bank earning 2% interest over the next 3 years, in 3 years you'd wind up with $1,000. The big idea here, or the main idea here, is that a dollar today is worth more than a dollar in the future. Alright, so let's start talking about what we're going to call the money supply. We've seen that almost anything can be considered money as long as it's acceptable for goods and services. And so what economists do is take all the things that we presently use as money, and it's not just cash as we're going to see, and they divide it into 3 categories based on liquidity. Liquidity meaning how easy is it to spend that kind of money. Cash is very easy to spend. Other things that we use as money tend to be a little bit more difficult to spend. The first category is called M1. M1 is the most liquid type of money, the easiest kind of money to spend. And in the future, when I use the word money, I'm going to be implicitly referring to just M1 money. That's what money is going to mean for us going forward. So M1 money includes 3 basic things. First off, currency and coins. That's money, and it's really easy to spend, obviously. Take it out of your pocket and give it to someone. Currency and coins are token money, which means that what they're made of is worth less than what they're supposed to represent. A dollar is a dollar, but it doesn't have a dollar's worth of material in it. A quarter is worth 25 cents, but it doesn't have 25 cents worth of metal in it. That's important because if it wasn't token money, people would simply break down the money for its component parts and sell it off. Secondly, currency and coins, or at least currency, are Federal Reserve notes, which means that they're obligations of the federal government. We'll talk more about that later. Secondly, money in people's checking accounts, which are called checkable deposits or sometimes called demand deposits, count as M1 money. Really easy kind of money to spend. You write out a check, hand it to someone, and you spend some money. That's actually the majority of M1 money out there, as we're going to see. And then third, traveler's checks, also very easy to spend. So again, going forward, when I say money, I mean one of these 3 things, M1 money. The M2 money supply is a little bit more difficult money to spend, a little bit money that's a little bit less liquid, and sometimes these are called near monies. Now in calculating M2, we're going to take everything that's in M1 and add some things to it. So it's a cumulative category. It includes cash, it includes traveler's checks, it includes checking accounts, plus some other things. The other things are money in people's savings accounts, which are a little bit harder to spend. You have to transfer them to checking and then spend them. Money market accounts, and small time deposits, certificates of deposit that are relatively short in length, maybe 6 months or a year or a couple of years. The third category of the 3 is called M3, and again, it's a cumulative category that includes even less liquid kinds of money. It's everything in M1 plus everything in M2, because M2 includes M1, plus large time deposits. Certificates of deposit of large amounts that have large lengths of time attached to them. Not really that important to memorize what's in M2 and M3, but it is important to memorize what's in M1 because that's what we're going to refer to as the money and money supply. Now, as you can see from this graph, and the vertical axis might be a little bit confusing, but the idea here in this graph is that M1 money is actually a relatively small percentage of all the money that's out there. That said, it's the most liquid kind of money, it's the easiest kind of money to spend, and it's therefore the kind of money that we're going to be focusing on. Now, just because the AP exam might ask it, credit cards are not considered money. They're considered loans. For some reason, a favorite question on the AP exam. Now, there are other financial assets that we're going to need to know about. There are stocks, which are essentially pieces of paper that show that you own a piece of a company. It's one of the ways that businesses raise money. They sell shares of themselves. This is called equity financing, and the nice thing about it is that it avoids debt. You're not borrowing money from people. The bad thing about it is that if you're the owner of the company, you're giving up some of the control of the company. The other financial asset that we're going to have to know about, which is far more important, are called bonds. Think of a bond as simply an IOU, a loan. And businesses will issue bonds, as well as governments, if they need to raise money. It's called debt financing. You don't give up control of the government or the business that's issuing the debt, but it does mean that you go into debt. You start owing people money. And these bonds are going to wind up being important for monetary policy, as we're going to see going forward. Collectively, securities are stocks and bonds, basically pieces of paper that are worth money that aren't exactly money as we define it. So if you think about what backs the money supply, why is a dollar worth a dollar? It used to be gold. It used to be the case that you could take a dollar bill, walk up to the government, at least theoretically, and say to the government, here's a dollar, give me $1 worth of gold. So people really thought that money had value because they could always turn it in for gold. That ended. It's no longer the case that money is backed by gold. So now you have to really think about, why is a dollar worth a dollar? Well, for one thing, it's a Federal Reserve note, which means it's a debt of the federal government. The government's saying, if you turn in a dollar, we'll give you something. It used to be gold. Now, if you turn in a dollar, they'll just give you 4 quarters or something. A new dollar, maybe. Secondly, money's worth something because people accept it. And again, here's this mass illusion thing. It's almost like a game theory problem. Money continues to be worth something because we all collectively agree that we'll think of it as having some worth. Third, money's legal tender. If you look on a dollar bill, it says this note is legal tender for all debts, public and private. What that means is that the government is saying, by law, you have to take this money in exchange for goods and services. And in fact, if you don't, the goods and services become free. We might talk about this in class, but think about what that might mean in terms of taking $20,000 worth of pennies to a car dealership and seeing whether they take those pennies. And then fourth, money's worth something because it's relatively scarce. There's just not that much around, or it's not as much as people want. And as we've seen in economics, anytime something's scarce, it becomes valuable. So what backs the money supply? Stable value through appropriate fiscal policy, not having inflation happen and decreasing the value of money. And secondly, intelligent management of the money supply, which is really up to the Federal Reserve. In other words, money has value because we believe it has value, and we have faith that the government's not going to mess things up and destroy the value of our money overnight, which has happened historically and could theoretically happen again. All right, going to stop that one there. Next time, we are going to be talking about the money market. Later.
Damn it, this is too hard! Here's what I think of your test, Mr. Teacher!